Sports Ball Podcast, everyone. With me, your resident F1 fanatic and self-proclaimed expert in Formula One. Just here to give you the rundown of the Formula One pre-season before the racing kicks off in Melbourne this weekend. So yeah, just to want to highlight the massive regulation changes that are happening with Formula One this year and the absolute and utter intrigue of every F1 fan across the globe on how this is all going to wash out and how preseason testing went. And it's pretty much all a guessing game for everyone at this stage, although there are some pretty well-educated guesses out there on who's doing well and who's not doing so well. But first, I'll cover off what the regulations are, to be honest. So I don't know why I said to be honest, but here we are. Engines have changed. They have removed the NGUH battery, so they now just run the NGUK battery with extra power to use in that. There is active aerodynamics where the front and the rear wing can be basically leveled out. I'm trying to think of the right phrase to say there, but leveled out on straights to give the cars more speed. And DRS has disappeared. No more DRS, even though the wing's still open. What they are now doing to aid overtaking where DRS used to work, where the rear wing flap would open to give the cars a bit more straight line speed, they're now able to use extra battery power when they're within 1 second of the car in front. But the problem that they're facing at the moment is that the batteries are running out very fastly, and on circuits where they're not able to harvest as much energy, the batteries aren't charging, and there could be some problems with overtaking coming into the new season. There is a lot of intrigue around the engines on that note, especially with Mercedes have found a loophole in some regulations to do with compression ratios. Just to run over that briefly, the test is done at ambient or effectively room temperature, and the compression ratio of these engines are supposed to be 16:1. Mercedes have found the loophole that when they run at operating temperature, which is high, they can get an 18:1 ratio out of that, which some teams are predicting that can be worth maybe 2 to 3 tenths per lap, which is a long time in Formula One. Now, onto testing itself. We had a preseason private test in Barcelona for 5 days where the teams were allowed to run for 3 out of those 5 days. Then we followed up with 2 3-day tests in Bahrain where all the teams were running all 3 days for full days. And just to kick it off with some concerns, Williams weren't able to make the private rundown, the private shakedown in Barcelona for the 5 days. They basically took a cautious approach mainly in relation to the spare parts on that car. Now, if you know, Williams were the most improved team last year. They ascended from down near the bottom of the pack and were actually the 5th constructor last year, which is a massive improvement and a big boon in their development to get back to the top like they used to be in the 90s. Now, Aston Martin also had a lot of problems, and it's coming out now that the Honda engine is not up to speed. Honda have said that Aston Martin demanded quite a few changes with the engine, which basically Honda acceded to and actually tried to make those changes, but they haven't come off as well as they should have. And that's causing some vibration problems, apparently, which is knocking their battery. So, and I'll get to how that worked out for Aston Martin in testing very soon. Now, when we did get to Bahrain from Barcelona, there were some pretty interesting things on display, especially from Ferrari. Just to cover off first that the perceived pecking order is that Ferrari are probably have hit the ground running a bit better than anyone else with their car. But I am a little bit cautious with predicting Ferrari are going to be that far advanced, because quite often in preseason testing, Ferrari do show their colours a little bit early. They don't maybe sandbag as much as the other teams, which is basically sandbagging means that teams are faking their pace. They may be running a bit extra fuel, so they're not showing their true pace. They do certain things. So they're not showing off all their potential, I guess. And there's also some other developments to come before the Australian race. So, yeah, although Ferrari do look good, Yeah, I'm just going to remain a little bit cautious about them, and but I will cover off on why they look good. Um, and it might be a bit of a long technical spiel, but basically, with the MGU-H battery being removed from the cars now have larger turbos. The engines have larger turbos, apart from Ferrari, who raised the flag last year and were basically ignored. So they've actually built themselves a smaller turbo. And what this means that on the start, in the start procedure, the cars with the bigger turbos have to kind of rev their cars for quite a long time to get the turbo spooling because there is a turbo lag. Ferrari have built a smaller turbo, so they don't have to take as long. And with practice starts that they did during the Bahrain test, Ferrari starts were incredibly quick, much, much, much better than other teams. So that's going to be something to look out for. Ferrari also had this incredibly clever rear wing innovation where the rear wing flap does open up like every other team, the Ferrari rear wing flap, that's hard to say, actually turns over a complete 180 degrees and basically it becomes an upside down wing and it actually reduces drag, so it will make them faster in a straight line again. And yeah, they seem to have shown their hand. They've shown their hand early, Ferrari, and these aren't simple fixes for other teams to follow if they do turn out to be quite effective, because it takes quite a bit of development time to get up to speed with those little innovations. So Ferrari have, yeah, as I said, perceived to have hit the ground running way better than any other team, but I think that remains to be seen in Melbourne. Now, when I was talking about the compression ratios before, that's the Mercedes engine. They do power five teams in the sport. So there's a lot of predictions that the Mercedes powered teams will have a lot more straight line speed. But there, like I said, there is concerns with the batteries around that and the energy that they can harvest and deploy to keep a consistent speed. That goes for all the teams down the field. Um, Now, moving on to the other teams that how the pecking order runs, it does seem like Ferrari are in front. Um, there is a bit of a coin toss on whether or not Mercedes are equal to them, because they did show a lot of potential in the test, and rumored that they were bringing a slightly upgraded engine to Melbourne as well already before the season starts. So who knows where that's going to lead, whether that's going to be much more powerful or how that will work. That could be anything on how that is, but it's supposed to be upgraded. Now that moves us on to McLaren and Red Bull. McLaren are powered by the Mercedes engine. They were looking very quick. They look to be on equal terms with Red Bull, who have a completely new engine partnered with Ford. So Red Bull are basically building their own engine with a bit of a partnership with Ford. I'm not sure what Ford's actual input is on their on the innovation of that engine, but I think it's just a technical partnership where Red Bull pretty much design and build it themselves, but Ford are helping them out with some bench testing and whatnot. But they're looking pretty good for a first-time engine manufacturer. Well, a brand new engine manufacturer coming into this and developing something quite good. Now, also in the testing last year and the couple of years previous, we were used to maybe a second separating the field from first to last on the grid. This year, if you are a relative newcomer to the sport and you're listening to this, be prepared that there's going to be much, much larger gaps between first and last on the grid, which could be up to 4 to 5 seconds per lap. And that is mainly probably from Aston Martin, who aren't going so well with Honda. They might not even finish races at this stage, to be honest, unless they can develop that engine, unless they're allowed to develop that engine. But Cadillac is the one I want to bring up, who are a brand new team. We have 11 teams in Formula One for the 2026 season. Cadillac have come in with a bit of a bang. Their expectations are low on them because they are a brand new team, and it's a massive undertaking to enter Formula One. Rumors are that they've already spent $1 billion on the program before they've even turned a wheel in anger on track. So that's a big number. Apparently they've been so busy. Rumors are that the team are already, like all the employees, all the staff are already quite exhausted and the season hasn't even started. So who knows how that will go, but I do wish all the best to Valtteri Bottas and Sergio Perez, who are their two drivers. I think they hired very well with their drivers, two very experienced race winners who have both driven for very top line teams who can share a lot of insight and develop that car and develop that team internally as well, as in the way they run, the way they manage, the way they do everything to get the best out of a Formula One team. It's not an easy job, not an easy job at all. Now, for me, yeah, we talk about the midfield. It does look as though Alpine have actually quite improved quite a bit. They were the 10th. They actually finished last in the constructors table last year. Alpine, they are looking pretty good up there in the front midfield, along with also the Red Bull Junior Team VCarb. And who else have we got on the books there? Yeah, sorry, I'm just going to take a pause while I open up my information. It's looking like, yeah, Audi. Audi also they have taken over. They've been operating under the Sauber name for the last few years, but with the new regulations, they had already planned to enter as Audi. They are a new engine manufacturer, so again, another team who are building their engine for the first time. It's actually quite a loud engine. It's much louder than the other team. So it's going to be really interesting to see how they progress. A lot of money behind them, a lot of technical now, a great pedigree behind the scenes and who are running the team and building all this stuff. A couple of great drivers. Hulkenberg's very experienced. Bortoleto is a rookie last year and shows a lot of promise. Bortoleto could be a future star given the right car at the right time. And it's going to be really interesting watching those. Haas, the original American team, or the original this century American team, looking very good as well, which I am actually loving seeing that. They have a Toyota backing now, and I'm actually predicting within the next year or two that Toyota will effectively buy Haas out and become a Toyota racing team. That's just a little prediction from me, but they're looking really good up there with Alpine. And Racing Bulls probably as the second tier on the grid at the moment, and Audi, Cadillac, Aston Martin, Williams are all looking down near the lower end of the pecking order at this stage. But everything is up for grabs, which is going to bring me to the next thing I kind of really want to talk about is the development race. Now, we are aware that McLaren have very good facilities, very good wind tunnel, very good CFD, and pretty much everything that they develop on the car hits the track and works exactly as they expect it to. A lot of teams don't have that. Aston Martin is a very good example of that. They will do their testing. Apparently, their new wind tunnel is well out of whack with the results that they see in the wind tunnel to compare to what they see on the track. McLaren don't have that. So I'm looking forward to, I mean, Formula One is as much of a development race off the track as it is on the track. I think that's where this year is going to be the most intriguing to see. We're going to see different results, I think, at different circuits. There's going to be very different circuit-specific performance from each team, each driver, as we always see as well. I think 2026 is going to be an epic Formula One year, but not for the reasons that most casual race fans would want to see. I don't think we're going to get a massive amount of close racing. There's going to be a lot of cars being lapped over and over again. We could see cars getting lapped 2 or 3 times. And look, this isn't historically abnormal. This was kind of the norm back in even as far as the early 2000s, where teams were like 2, 3, 4 seconds off a lap. I've actually been rewatching some old Formula One seasons from the past, and 1993 is where I'm at, and it's a good example to bring up because at times there was, between pole position and fourth on the grid could be a lap. Nowadays, well, as we saw last year, that could mean 20 cars on the grid last year. So I'm really keen to see where the development goes. My money is on McLaren developing better than anyone else because I just think they have that pedigree in them. I do think they do have the best driver lineup on the grid for sure. Oscar and Lando are both extremely quick, both extremely competent. Oscar's going to improve again a bit this year over last year. Where he holds up in these new regulations compared to Lando, there's a bit less grip in these cars. Apparently, Oscar has a bit of struggle in lower grip situations, which I'm not sure I subscribe to that thought too much because he's very impressive in the wet, Oscar. So I would flip a coin to see who comes out on top of that battle. As far as teammate battles go, Mercedes will have Antonelli again teaming up with George Russell. George Russell at the moment is the favourite to win the World Driver Championship, pretty much because he's the team leader in the Mercedes, who are touted to be the best team out there at the moment, have developed the best engine and probably the best car. But again, like I think it's going to be closer than that. I think Antonelli will improve a lot in his second year. He will make mistakes still, but I think he'll show Russell up at some points. He improved greatly in the last half of last year, and I'm really keen to see how Antonelli keeps progressing. We have Max Verstappen joined by Isaac Hadjar, who came from the Racing Bulls team from last year. I've always been a fan of Hadjar from his Formula 3 and Formula 2 days. Always been very quick, always been an impressive racer, great mind, just a great character as well. I don't think he'll hold a candle to Verstappen though. And I think that's kind of shown in preseason testing a little bit already that Verstappen's probably 3 or 4 tenths in front of Hadjar. But again, it's only his second season. He's in the big team now, a lot more pressure. He's got a lot of room to grow. So hopefully he shows up pretty well. Hopefully he's not too far off the mark. With that, next team on the list, we have, I'll talk about the drivers, is Leclerc and Hamilton in Ferrari. Hamilton's looking much more energized at the moment, rumored to be dating Kim Kardashian. Silly boy. But I'm interested to see how he holds up against Leclerc in a bit more of an even playing field with a whole new set of regulations coming in, and now it's basically starting from scratch for both of them, where Leclerc was more used to that old Ferrari than Hamilton clearly was, because as close as these cars are, they're all very, very different to drive, and Hamilton just wasn't getting used to last year's car, and Leclerc had many years' experience in that same car, and that's kind of why I think he outshone Hamilton last year. This year's going to be very different. I don't know whether age will play a factor in Hamilton. I do sneakily think that my hot take is Leclerc is probably the second best or second quickest, maybe not best. There's difference between the quickest and the best. But Leclerc is definitely the second quickest driver out there on their day in this perfect circumstances, perfect car, perfect everything. Verstappen has it over Leclerc. Who's third? I don't know. I'm not going to get into that argument right now. Looking at it, I'd probably just give a biased opinion. So I'm not. I think they are the two quickest drivers overall. So I think Leclerc, if Ferrari are living up to their potential and develop that car on equal footing with everyone else, I think Leclerc has got a real good chance at the championship this year. And I'd love to see it. I'm a big fan of Charles. He's again another great character, and he deserves it. To be honest, he needs a bit of luck on his side. He has had a bit of bad luck in his career. Next team, Albon and Sainz. I think Sainz will walk all over Albon. I think Sainz is one of the greatest drivers out there. He's in the top 4 or 5 drivers on the grid for sure. Albon is very, very good. Don't get me wrong, but I think Carlos will have the wood on him. I think he'll get him. And he was showing that again at the end of last year. He got on top of that Williams. He scored the team 2 podiums. They haven't scored a podium in like over a decade. So that was around a decade. So that was great to see, and I think you'll have him. Racing Bulls have Liam Lawson staying in the team, and they've got the only rookie on the grid joining this year is Arvid Lindeblad. Again, really impressive in the junior formula, Arvid. So we'll be really intrigued to see how he goes. I was kind of thinking Pepe Marti from Formula 2, which is also in the Red Bull family, might get a crack. If Lindblad doesn't do well, maybe Pepe will, but actually no, he won't, because he races Formula E now. I'll take that back. Anyway, it's going to be very interesting to see how Racing Bulls goes probably at the top or near the front of the midfield. Another interesting battle. Aston Martin from last year, I don't hold much hope for them. I would be surprised if Alonso continues to race next year. This may be his last season. I'm actually kind of thinking if that car is so terrible, Alonso might just pull out, might retire mid-season after 4 or 5 races even, if that car is as big of a piece of shit as it's showing to be, and if they don't get something right. Alonso was hanging around for these regulations to get back on top, but I don't think it's going to happen with this team, sadly, even with Adrian Newey behind the drawing board designing this car. I don't think it's going to be the car's fault. It's going to be the Honda's fault again. And poor old Alonso, if you know Alonso and have followed the sport for a little bit, his history with Honda is not great, because Honda were McLaren when Alonso was driving for McLaren in the mid 2010s, 15, 16, 17. Honda was supplying those engines to them too in a new engine formula, and it was a terrible engine. And Alonso hated it, so this relationship with between Alonso and Honda is going to be very interesting to watch. Whether he finishes the season remains to be seen. I'm predicting that he will probably quit mid-season, because I just don't think the car's going to be up to scratch, and he'll just have had enough, I would say. He's in his, he's hitting his mid-40s. It's a lot of work to travel around the world doing this stuff for so long, and he might just be getting a little bit tired. Haas, the team I hold a lot of hope for this year. Ollie Behrman, excellent, excellent driver. As I predicted last year, if you go back to an episode that we released on Sportswell around this time last year, I did predict Ollie Behrman would get the best of Esteban Ocon, his teammate, and he did for the most part. Was out qualifying him, out racing him, doing quite a bit. He outscored him in points only just, but um, yeah, the performances were much better than Ocon's. Ocon got a bit more luck than Behrman did, I think, in certain races, which got him a bit more points than he probably deserved. Behrman will probably replace Hamilton at Ferrari when Hamilton decides to retire. I think he's that good, and he's got a big future. I will be watching Haas with a lot of well, big eyes, I would say, because I think they're going to do very well. They do have the Ferrari engine as well, which could be very interesting, especially come race start time, how many positions they might be able to make up on race starts with that Ferrari engine. Next off, we have Hulkenberg and Bortoleto in the Audi, as I mentioned before. This one, again, this could go either way. This could go great or it could go bad. I would want to give Audi a few more years in the sport to get to near the peak of performance. But this is going to be just more of a trial year, but it's going to be interesting. I think they'll score points, absolutely, but I'm just not sure they're going to be up there consistently, if that makes sense. Alpine, it's good to see them back on top. Still not a fan of Colapinto. I just don't think he's good. And watching Drive to Survive at the moment, the way they kicked out Jack Doohan last year, Alpine, for Colapinto, who did probably worse than Doohan, honestly. They gave him more time because I think I'm on record of saying this plenty of times, but Colapinto has money behind him, he has backing. He's got someone kissing his ass because he doesn't deserve that seat, not more than Jack Doohan does. But anyway, here we are. I'm a bit bitter about that because Jack Doohan's obviously a fellow Australian, but more than that, he actually was brought up in the same suburb and same town that I live in. So I've got a bit more of a connection to Doohan there than I ever expected to. But anyway, Doohan's not out of it. He is the reserve driver for Haas, who I was talking about just a moment ago. But keen to see Alpine do well. They were run by Renault, who didn't develop an engine for this year because they are now running the Mercedes engine. So they will do better just because of that alone. But they might have developed that car pretty well. So they look to be at the front of the midfield. So be interesting to see if that is true or not. And lastly, but certainly not least, I don't think, is Cadillac, the new team, as I talked about before, Perez and Bottas. I'm going to be interested to see how they operate. They might not even finish a lot of races. They are running the Ferrari engine, though, so that's another plus for them. But probably expect them to be tailing around the back of the field for pretty much most of the year. If they score a point this year, that'll be a win in itself, to be honest. So they might get there through retirements or a bit of rain and a bit of luck, a bit of safety car luck. But that will be the only time I think they will score a point is when they get a bit of a luck of the Irish, as they say. Anything else I need to cover off on? Probably not. Thank you for tuning in. Just on that note, I will be doing post-race thoughts, opinions, analysis. I'll say analysis. I don't think I'll really be analyzing races, but I'll be coming on to talk about them after each race now on this podcast feed. So keep it open if you want to listen to me ramble about Formula One. If you even want to join me to talk about these races, hit us up. And I'd love to have you on as long as we can get the time zones right. And yeah, we'll talk about Formula One together and become one of those groups who just dribble on and get abused by other F1 fans for our hot takes and opinions. But until next time, guys, thank you very much for tuning in and listening, and hope you all enjoy the Formula One season ahead and that your driver gets a win or something that you're looking forward to. Until next time, bye-bye.